When I started getting serious about weight training back in my late teens, early 20s, I had no idea how many benefits it would bring me. I genuinely believe that everything from my mindset to my career success and the way I approach just basically everything in my life and achieving success came down to the lessons that I learned from consistently going to the gym and learning how to build the physique that I now have. And so I'm really thrilled to see that weight training has become such a big thing for young men these days, or men of all ages. Truthfully, I see a lot of guys in their 30s, 40s, and 50s who are really starting to take their fitness seriously. And so in this video, what I want to do is tell you what I would do if it was my first day in the gym. If you're somebody who hasn't been training for very long and you still don't really feel like you understand exactly what you're doing and how to achieve your goals, or maybe you're somebody who is a bit insecure about going to the gym because you really don't know what to do and so you're inconsistent about it, or maybe you just haven't shown up at all, this video is going to walk you through the things that I would do if I were brand new to training so that you can get the most results as quickly as possible. And the first thing I would do is avoid beginner mistakes. One of the biggest reasons that people will go to the gym and not stay consistent with it is because they don't have a plan and they don't really know what they're doing when they get into the gym. And so you show up, you kind of half-ass things, you make a lot of mistakes that you would obviously make as a beginner, and you don't know how to correct these things, you don't get results, and then you start telling yourself all these stories about how the gym's just not for me, or you make up all these excuses about why it's not working, and you just don't stay consistent. If you can avoid beginner mistakes, you put yourself on the path to achieving your goals. Knowing what you're doing when you start training is so important, guys. In the past, I've had friends and clients who tried to go to the gym before they started working with me or before I started helping them if they were my friends, and they would never stay consistent with it and never get results because they just didn't know what they were doing. And then once they start training with me and I put them on the right protocols and I tell them what to do and they start getting results, they literally get addicted to the process because they are creating this dream physique for themselves. The process just becomes self-rewarding. The confidence they get from themselves and then from other people telling them how good they look and the attraction they start getting from women and just the way they carry themselves, it all just completely changes for the better. And this becomes something that you can do for the rest of your life, but it really starts with getting over that hump at the beginning, getting those wins so that you start building this self-rewarding cycle where you just want to show up to the gym. At this point, it is literally harder for me to take a day off from the gym than to go to the gym. And so there's three main mistakes that beginners make. The first one is showing up to the gym with no plan. If it was my first day in the gym, I would be showing up with an actual plan. What most beginners do is they kind of go in and they don't really know what they're doing. They've seen a few people do some exercises, so maybe they pick up a couple dumbbells. They don't know if the weight's right for them, and they kind of just throw some dumbbells around. Maybe they get on a treadmill, maybe they get on a bike, maybe they sit on the bench. Like, they're just doing a bunch of shit, and they really have no idea what they're doing and how this is going to lead to their goals. And obviously, if you have no plan, you can't expect to succeed. If you were starting a business and had no idea what you were doing, you would obviously fail. If you went to martial arts and started trying to fight people who knew how to fight, you would get your ass kicked if you didn't have a plan to improve yourself. So it just makes sense that in anything you're doing in life, you need a serious plan. And so if I was showing up to the gym, the first thing I would be making sure I did was actually having a plan. I would not be showing up like a beginner, and we'll get into the plan that you need to follow here in just a second. But this is the first big mistake that beginners make that causes them to not get results and end up quitting. The second thing is inconsistency. Beginners are extremely inconsistent. I don't just mean that they're inconsistent about showing up, although that is an issue, but they're inconsistent when they get to the gym, meaning that they try a bunch of different stuff. There's no consistency to what they're doing. And if I were in my first day going to the gym, I would be following a consistent protocol. I would be doing the same kinds of exercises consistently because this is how you know that you're actually making progress. And the third mistake is just straight up not knowing what you're doing, meaning you don't really know how to achieve your goals. And so you're doing a bunch of things that don't even serve your goals, whether that be in the kitchen or in the gym. People just start doing things like, I'll talk to guys sometimes and they want to lose a bunch of weight and get this incredible physique, and they just start walking on a treadmill and they don't really know what they're doing, and then they're eating these things that they heard somebody tell them to eat. They just straight up don't know what they're doing. And these three mistakes are basically how you show up to the gym, fail to achieve results, end up quitting, and you relegate yourself to this place where you think you are just destined to have this disappointing, embarrassing kind of body for your whole life, but it really doesn't have to be that way. And so now that you know the 3 big mistakes that you need to avoid as a beginner, it becomes clear what you need to do so that you can actually achieve results. So if it was my first day in the gym, what I would really be looking at is creating a program that was catered to my specific situation, meaning I would show up with a plan that helped me get from where I am today to where I want to go. Not all plans are going to be the same. I made an entire video about this recently, discussing how if you have one of these 3 different body types, being that you are super skinny and your body just cannot seem to put on muscle, you're what they call a hard gainer, or if you're skinny fat, meaning that you're a skinny guy who has a little bit of a gut and you're just out of shape, or if you're overweight and possibly even obese. These are 3 different body types that have 3 different goals and 3 different situations and like processes that you need to follow in order to achieve fitness goals. So I would be showing up to the gym with a plan catered to where I'm at right now and where I'm trying to go. Like I said, I made an entire video that broke down the exact protocols that you need to follow for each one of these body types. So I won't go into crazy detail here. I will link to that video at the end of this one so you can watch it. But just as a quick aside on that, basically, if you're a skinny guy, you want to be eating a ton of food, and the way that you're going to be training is going to be different than someone who is obese. If you are somebody who is skinny, you really want to focus on compound movements that are going to require a bit more rest. You're not looking to really burn a ton of calories during the training. You are looking to maximize the muscle response that you are generating here. So things like deadlifts that might take a lot of rest between sets become a useful exercise for you. Things like bench, incline bench, squats, these become valuable exercises, where if you're somebody who is obese and you want to lose weight, taking 5 minutes between sets on deadlifts is not the best use of your time. You're obviously going to want to do things different. And obviously in the kitchen, you're going to eat differently. You're going to be looking at a calorie deficit and eating a lot more clean than somebody who just needs to pack on size because their body is really struggling to actually grow. The next thing I would be doing if it was my first day in the gym is, once I understood what my goal was and based on my specific situation, I would start following a consistent plan. For me, the way I do my training split and the way I recommend for most people to do it is I do 3 days of training followed by 1 day off. And I know the freaking high intensity training people are going to lose their mind about this, but this is what has worked for me. I have tried the high intensity training where you do like 3 days or 2 days even of weight training, and it just didn't get me the results that going 5 to 6 days per week got me. And so this has become the program that I follow. It's the program that gets my clients results. It's been the program that has gotten my friends results. This is the thing that works. 3 days on, 1 day off. And the way I do it is usually I either do chest and back, or I do shoulders and back, and then I do chest and arms or shoulders and arms, depending on which one of those 2 I did with back. I just do the other one with arms. And then I do a leg and ab day. And so I do those 3 workouts, and then I take a rest day. And this is how I rotate through it. And if you are at the beginning of your training process, if it was my first day in the gym, I would be following a consistent plan. You're going to follow that same kind of split, 3 days on, 1 day off. But not only are you going to follow a consistent split, but when you show up to the gym, you are going to do the same exercises, at least for the first 60 days. And the reason for this is because we need to tap into progressive overload. Progressive overload meaning that when you go into the gym, you consistently are increasing either the number of reps you're doing or the amount of weight you are using on an exercise. And this is the most accurate way to ensure that you are consistently making progress in the gym, is to know that, hey, I'm doing more reps or I'm doing more weight than I was last week. And that becomes a proxy for progress. It tells you that, hey, if you're getting stronger, you're putting on muscle. We're moving in the right direction. But the problem is, if you go into the gym and 1 week you're doing these exercises and the next week you're doing these exercises, it becomes harder to track your progress. And especially as a beginner, one thing that you really haven't developed yet is that sense of mind-muscle connection. Your nervous system is not adapted to the training, and so you really don't know exactly how to do things correctly. And so keeping the exercises that you do consistent allows you to more quickly get up to speed with the process, learning how to contract your muscles better, and it ensures that you're making more consistent progress. It's just like for me in my martial arts training, we focus so much on the basics, right? It's just constantly focusing on the jab, the double jab cross. These are the things that I still work on to this point. Even though I've been training for over a year, we always go back to those basics. You want to master fundamentals so that you can then adapt around them, but it starts with understanding those basics. And so if I was new to the gym, I would be doing the same 3 workouts over and over again, and then I would be taking that rest day. So it'd be 3 days on, 1 day off, and that means that you're going to do the same workout 15 times over a 60-day period. That gives you plenty of time to start making some progress, and 60 days really isn't that long, so you're not going to get that bored of it. And if you have an ounce of discipline and you're actually motivated to change your physique, then you can suck it up, show up, and do the same exercises over and over again. And over this time, you will make progress. You'll know that you made progress, which makes it easier to keep showing up because you're like, oh, cool. The first time I did the bench press, I did 95 pounds. And then at the end of 60 days, now I'm doing 135 pounds. You see the progression. You start to get motivated by this. You see the results you're getting. This is the most straightforward and simplest way to do it because now you don't have to wonder, am I doing things wrong? You know you're following the right protocol and you're doing it consistently. So for that first 60 days in particular, you want to make sure that you are doing the same exercises over and over again so you can track your progress. After that, as you get better at this, you can start playing around with it a little bit more. Now, the next thing you need to do if you are new to the gym is cut out the bullshit. What do I mean by that? I just mean like, listen, a lot of your fitness success or just success in life in general, it's not about adding things, right? Everybody's looking for the supplement hacks. Like they want the creatine or the this or the that, like all these just freaking supplements they heard about on the internet. A lot of it comes down to like just not making stupid mistakes. It's the same in business, right? Like if you go into business and everybody wants the fancy CRM or the fancy software or the fancy this, like they want the fancy shit. It's like, do you just have the basics down? Do you have a product that is selling? Do you have leads that you are selling the product to? Like, do you even have the basics down? And so with cutting out the bullshit, what that comes down to is getting the things out of the way that are actually holding you back. And one of the big ones is obviously your diet, a lot of refined sugars that people eat and things like sodas and just sweets, and just basically half of the grocery store is packed full of refined sugars. Along with this, it's also refined carbs, things like that, you know, your white breads, all that kind of stuff. You want to get this stuff out of your diet and be focused on a diet built on natural whole foods. That means things like meats and quality meats, ideally, fruit, vegetables, things like that, dairy products that are not super processed. You want to focus on these kinds of things. Other bullshit that you want to cut out would be things like bad sleep. Most people have terrible sleep, which is wrecking their testosterone levels. And also when you sleep, this is when you pack on the most muscle and burn the most fat because it's the recovery period for your body. So cutting out bullshit like this and also cutting out the half-assed workouts, you know, the ones where you're scrolling on your phone and you don't really bother to increase the weight each week. You just keep going through the motions. This is a surefire way to stagnate your progress and end up quitting. The next thing I would do is make sure that I was eating the right stuff. So we've cut out the bullshit. Now, well, what should you be eating? The first thing I'd focus on, and I'm trying to keep this simple for you guys, is I would focus on eating protein-centric meals, meaning that I would eat meals where protein was the central thing in the meal. Most people genuinely build their meals around carbs, right? It's like mac and cheese with a little bit of chicken in it. It's just things like that, right? Like carbs become the central part of most people's diet, and you want to trade that for a protein-centric meal, right? So instead of a lot of carbs and a little bit of protein, now we want to have a giant chicken breast or a giant steak, and maybe you have some potatoes on the side, or maybe you have some rice on the side. Ideally, we cut out things like mashed potatoes if you're trying to cut weight, that is, you know, but you want to make sure you're focusing on protein-centric meals. You should be looking at every meal and saying, do I have eggs, chicken, steak, salmon, something like that at the center of this meal? And if you do that 3 times a day, you're probably going to get around 150 grams of protein from doing this, and that for most people is going to be enough protein for you to maximize your muscle gain and also make sure that you are eating quality stuff instead of loading yourself up on cheap carbs. The next thing is you want to make sure you're eating good carb sources. I would recommend most of your carbs coming from things like sweet potatoes and honey, maybe some rice, maybe some beans as well. These are the kinds of carb sources that I eat the most of, maybe a little bit of whole grain bread, but definitely not like your ultra refined white bread, the kind of shit most people eat, cereals, this kind of stuff. You got to cut it out of your diet. Now, I'll tell you for my specific diet protocol if you want to follow it. And again, I've discussed this in several other videos on the channel, so you can check out some of the foods that I eat. But I build most of my diet around steak, eggs, and ground beef. Basically, every meal I have has one of those 3 things at the center of it, whether it's an omelet, whether it is ground beef and eggs, whether it is a steak and eggs, or steak with, you know, asparagus and sweet potatoes, or asparagus and mushrooms, things like that. These are the kinds of meals that I really focus on eating. We've also got something called the maxed meal, as we call it inside of the school community. This is a meal that I got from a friend of mine. It's ground beef, cheese, sweet potato chips, blueberries, avocado, and honey. And it sounds really weird to most people, but if you try it, trust me, it's a really good meal. You're going to get over 50 grams of protein from it, really good carb sources from the avocado, the honey, and the sweet potato chips. It's a really good meal for you to throw in there, and it's something you can eat consistently. This is another meal that I eat, and again, you'll see ground beef is the central part of that meal. And the last thing that I would be doing if I were new to the gym and it was my first day is I would forget about supplements. This is the biggest distraction that people focus on. Unless you are a man in your 40s, 50s, and you need to focus on testosterone optimization, I wouldn't be worried about supplements. Now, I take supplements, and so I'm not saying it's a problem to take supplements, but the thing is everybody gets distracted by supplements. And if you are new, like, listen, the most important thing is not creatine. The most important thing is diet and exercise and sleep, right? You get those three things right, you are going to get in great shape. Then you add in creatine. I'll tell you guys, I have had a very on and off relationship with creatine. I only recently even started taking it again, and the reason I did it was more for cognitive benefits than physical benefits. I have not built my physique off creatine and fucking supplements. I built it off of consistently eating right and consistently training hard. If you do those things, you will get results. Add the supplements in later, but don't get so autistic thinking about this kind of shit. Focus on the basics. You know, this is the funny thing. Like, you'll just see so many guys, they run to the supplement store on January 1st, ready for their New Year's resolution. They buy $200 worth of supplements, skip the gym, don't ever use the supplements anyways. And this is what happens for most people. You got to master the basics before you start overcomplicating this thing. So that would be my protocol. If it was my first day in the gym, that's what I'd be focusing on. Hope this helps you guys. If you want to learn more specific details about how to train for your situation, click the video that's coming up on screen. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. I'll talk to you later.